My name is Brian Conkle. I serve as Dean of Hendricks Chapel here at Syracuse University. Welcome to Music and Message. Music and Message is a weekly series from Hendricks Chapel that features musical performances and spoken reflections from a diversity of religious and spiritual perspectives. These gatherings seek to invite all learners into the fullness of life. Our theme for this semester is Beauty, Brokenness. And today we give thanks to Dr. Chen, who's with us, a faculty member in the Setner School of Music. We give thanks for Ethan Smith, student convener of the Student Assembly of Interfaith Leaders, and also our choir, Marnie Brown, Crystal Lee, Daniel Lepetour, and Cedric Middleton. We thank you for being with us. Some opening thoughts on beauty by David White in his book, Consolations, the Solace, Nourishment, and Underlining Meaning of Everyday Words. Beauty is the harvest of presence, the moment of seeing or hearing on the outside what already lives far inside us. The eyes, the ears, or the imagination suddenly become a bridge between the here and the there, between then and now, between the inside and the outside. Beauty is the conversation between what we think is happening outside the world and what is just about to occur far inside. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. That was beautiful. My name is Ethan. I am the student convener of SAIL, as Dean Conkle had mentioned earlier. So my partner has a black bucket hat. She loves to wear it. You may ask, why is this important? Because it says, is beauty a decision? That's all it says. At its basics, that's a simple question. Is beauty a decision? Did you wake up and decide this morning, ooh, I want to be beautiful today? Or did you wake up this morning and do whatever it is you do in the morning? But we can all quickly tell this is no simple question. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on a hat. Some mornings, I may decide to look better, gel my hair, dress nicer, while other days I may roll out of bed and into class, or Zoom, rather. Did I decide when I rolled out of bed not to be beautiful? Did I decide when I put on nice clothes today to be beautiful? This question seems lighthearted, but we all know that beauty is just a sense of perception. What I believe to be beautiful, some others may not find to be beautiful, and vice versa. But this logic doesn't have to stop at beauty. What about brokenness? Is that a decision? What does it mean to be broken? Is it a perception of our world like beauty, or is it something that we hold deep down? Can we break? And is being broken bad? Some might say the world we live in today is broken. Others might say the world is beautiful. So what is the world? Beautiful or broken? Simply put, yes. The world is beautiful. The world is broken. We have people quite literally fighting in the streets, brokenness, while we have people coming together to make the world a better place, beauty. Beauty is generally considered a good thing and has a lot of positivity surrounding it, but I'm not here to tell you that. I'm here to tell you that brokenness should too. Something being broken is sad, but it does not mean that brokenness should be shrouded in negativity. When we break something, a chair perhaps, what do we do next? Do we stop using chairs altogether, or do we do something about it? We may decide to pick up some super glue and fix it, or just to replace it with a new chair. Either way, we get something out of it. We either learn a new skill in fixing chairs, or we just get to have a new chair. These are positives, but chairs are simple. They don't matter. What about people? I've already asked if people can break, and I've definitely heard of broken people, but we assume that when someone is broken, they are beyond repair. But that's not what broken means. Broken means they can be repaired, that we can do something about it. But what about the world we live in today? I would argue that the world is a little broken. If it wasn't, it wouldn't need fixing. But that's not a bad thing necessarily. Because I can say that the world is broken, I can also say we should repair the world. We have to put aside our differences, whether that's in race, nationality, gender, sexual orientation, or religion. We have to come together and work together as a world and make the world as best for everyone as possible. And that can start here, on this campus, in this facility. We, as a group of multi-faith people, should come together in interfaith to help repair the world, one step at a time. A strong interfaith community can tear down the walls between us, repair the brokenness of the world, and join together in beauty. This world is made beautiful not by nature, although nature is beautiful, but by how people interact with each other. And our interactions through the spiritual sphere is an amazing way to make the world beautiful. In Judaism, we have a term called tzedakah, in essence, charity. Through tzedakah, we choose to beautify the world to the best of our ability, whether it be through donating to charities, or building housing for the underprivileged, or hosting guests on our holidays. It is ingrained in the Jewish religion to help others and to give to others. And I know through my experiences in interfaith that we are far from the only religious group to have a form of charity. Learning about various religions and coming to an understanding of each other, like how we all have a form of charity, can make the world beautiful. I would love to hear from everyone about their religion's belief in their own form of charity and repairing the world. And a shameless plug, I would love to hear about this in SAIL, the Student Assembly of Interfaith Leaders. But regardless of if you join us in SAIL, I want you to help repair our broken world and beautify it through interfaith. Thank you.
Beauty is behind me, above and below me. Now I walk in beauty. Beauty is before me. Beauty is behind me, above and below me. Now I walk in beauty. Beauty is before me. Beauty is behind me, above and below me. Now I walk in beauty. Beauty is before me. Beauty is behind me, above and below me. Beauty is before me. Beauty is behind me, above and below me.
Being first because you were last. Being strong because you were weak. Being beautiful because you are broken. Justice and mercy, freedom and bondage, guilty and free. Gaining by giving, teaching by learning, speaking by listening, succeeding through failing, confirming through questioning, leading through serving. Our lives are filled with paradox. Our learning is filled with paradox. From logic to mathematics, from decision theory to physics, from biology, chemistry, linguistics, artificial intelligence, economics, politics, psychology, sociology, to philosophy and theology. Paradox is that which appears to be contradictory, yet can deemed to be true. As a Lutheran minister, I have come to believe that Christian theology is, at its core, an exercise in the art of paradox. In seeking to better understand the relationship between God and humankind, Christian theology is made up of sacred contradictions, such as giving is getting, scattering is gaining, holding is losing, and having nothing is possessing all things. Or as Jesus himself seems to share, it is those who are weak that are strong. Happiness is received when it is no longer sought. Actions speak louder than words, and in dying, we are given new life. I do believe that regardless of one's own religious and spiritual tradition, paradox does allow to reflect upon who God is. And also, paradox allows us to reflect upon who we are. And in doing so, paradox allows us to better understand the simplicities and complexities of the world around us, so we might be able to experience both fulfillment and crisis through a world that is both broken and beautiful. Paradox allows us to perceive the world as both wonderful and woeful, both amazing and appalling, and both awesome and awful. And in doing so, we experience both contentment and ambition, both redemption and regret, and both gladness and sadness. The world is both beautiful and broken. For example, on July 17th, 2006, there was a small group of children gathered in the village of Tuckville, located near Georgetown, Guyana. After a few hours of games on the street, the curious crew wandered away from adult supervision and explored a nearby abandoned sewage facility. The children enjoyed their playful investigation, but as they walked a narrow path near the edge of a raw sewage container, a 5-year-old girl named Brianna Dover accidentally slipped. She fell and she sank to the bottom. As to be expected, Brianna's friends immediately screamed and ran for help. But as neighbors and witnesses rushed to the site, they all stood in shock. Although some considered diving into the tank, no one stepped forward. The container was too large, the smell of rotten feces too disgusting, and the actions required far too dangerous. With each passing moment, Brianna Dover held to the brink of life at the bottom of the sewage reservoir, moving closer to death with each tick of the clock. In the meantime, a middle-aged man named Ordock Reed heard the commotion. After initially thinking it was a worker dispute, he eventually examined the situation, and as he approached the tank, he was greeted with loud screams and anguished faces. When he was told about Brianna's predicament, he acted immediately. Ordock Reed, a total stranger, he took off his clothes, he tied up his dreadlocks, fastened a rope to his waist, handed the other end of the rope to an onlooker, and submerged himself through the muck and filth in an attempt to rescue Brianna Dover. After a few minutes, a large crowd gathered near the sewage container. Over and over again, Ordock Reed rose to the surface for oxygen, and within seconds, dove back into the sewage. As time passed, he cut off his sacred dreadlocks, a significant sacrifice for a Rastafarian such as himself, in the hopes of moving more freely within the reservoir, for he believed such efforts would improve his chances of saving Brianna Dover. In a flash of hope and excitement, after 30 minutes of searching, Ordock Reed felt a slight nudge near his waist. He reached down, he grabbed Brianna Dover and brought her out of the filth and back to the surface. After lifting her from the tank, she was immediately rushed to the hospital for emergency medical attention. The crowd cheered and congratulated Ordock Reed for his bravery. Some offered him cash donations, while others patted him on the back and offered a few kind words. I first heard this story of Ordock Reed and Brianna Dover when I was serving in Guyana. I lived a few hours where these events took place. While this all occurred several years ago, I continue to reflect on this story. And whenever possible, I try to tell this story, and yes, retell this story. In ways similar to a sacred text, there are some sacred stories that deserve to be shared over and over and over again. For in hearing such real-life narratives, we might better interpret something real about the narratives of our own lives. And for today, as we engage this topic of paradox, I believe there are two that are inherent in this story of Ordock Reed and Brianna Dover that I wish to highlight. Paradox number 1. Our lives are often held within the hands of those whom we do not know. And number 2, the world is both broken and beautiful. Paradox number 1. Our lives are often held within the hands of those we do not know. A reality of life is that each day we depend upon the love and faithfulness of strangers. And in turn, strangers continually depend upon the love and the faithfulness of us. And in the midst of a global pandemic, we are learning this lesson in ways we could not have imagined before. To live and learn within our interconnected world is to resist indifference and apathy, and to engage in respect and responsibility. For we are called upon, perhaps now more than ever, to recognize the profound connectedness of all life, and in doing so, to live in companionship with all people. One of the grand paradoxes of life is that those who often have the most impact on our lives are those people who we do not even know. We do not know their names. We do not know their stories. We do not know their beauty. We do not know their brokenness. But they impact our lives, and they hold our lives in the palm of their hands. And we hold their lives in our hands. We are indeed in the company of strangers, and strangers are in the company of us. Paradox number 2, the world is both beautiful and broken. Not 50% beautiful and 50% broken, but 100% beautiful and 100% broken. On July 17th, 2006, Ordoc Reed acted with tremendous courage. He embodied the best of what it means to be most fully human: compassion, courage, strength, sacrifice. But of course, his beautiful actions were in many ways a direct result of so much that is broken in our world. The need for him to act that day was because of poverty, inequality, injustice, indifference. There is no good reason why a small girl should have found herself submerged in raw sewage. In many ways, Ordoc Reed was forced to be so beautiful in that moment because the world around him was so broken. Yes, the world is both beautiful and broken. Ordoc Reed provided an example for all of us to strive, yet on the other hand, Brianna Dover died that day. The world is both beautiful and broken. Ordoc Reed acted with selfless love that is beyond the common capacity for compassion. Yet his compassion needed to happen because so many others stood by and did nothing. The world is both beautiful and broken. The world is filled with everyday heroes that do the unimaginable in service to others. Yet the world is also filled with injustices that far too many of us have grown far too willing to accept. The world is both beautiful and broken. And as the great poet Jan Richardson remarks, perhaps for now, it can be enough to simply marvel at the mystery of how a heart so broken can go on beating as if it were made precisely for this, as if it knows the only cure for love is more of it. Our lives are held within the hands of those we will never know. And yes, the world is both broken and beautiful. And yes, over the past days, I have contemplated these thoughts with increased frequency and intensity. My daughter recently turned 8 years old. She was born in Madison, Wisconsin. As a resident of Wisconsin, being born and raised, I am very proud to have a cheesehead daughter. I want to say that. I'm smiling underneath this mask. And as I think about that day in 2012, I am mindful of the countless strangers that made my daughter's birth a reality. And I'm thankful for the countless contributors who guided my wife through labor. But I'm also mindful of those within our country and around the world that do not have the access to medical care that I received. I'm mindful of how my own accident of birth, that I did not ask for and that I did not earn, but continue to benefit from, allowed my daughter to be born healthy, while others, by no choice of their own, are often faced with substandard care in substandard conditions that put both child and their mother at risk. Yes, our lives are held within the hands of those whom we will never know, and the world is both broken and beautiful. As I think about 8 years ago, when my daughter was born, I think about the people I do not know. Physicians, nurses, receptionists, the list goes on. But I also think about others who are responsible for medical advances, technological breakthroughs, specialized facilities, medical school improvements, and so on, and so on, and so on. The list is imaginable. And today I wonder, what does it also mean in knowing that far too many, both near and far, do not have such access to such beauties because of what is still broken? Perhaps for today, it means that we should reflect upon that which appears to be broken in our own lives. And in doing so, just as we would hope that someone, anyone, would jump into the sewage of our lives to save us in our moments of need, we too are to be mindful of the times that others need such acts from us. Each day, because our world is both broken and beautiful, and in every moment, because we as humans are both beautiful and broken, we can still do our part. At times, we might be called upon to perform actions that are quite profound, like those of Ordoc Reed. But most often, they are the subtle deeds of kindness, performed each day, that often go unnoticed or unconsidered. So within this circle of life and death, and in this circle of complexity and simplicity, perhaps we too might learn to gain by giving, to teach by learning, and to speak by listening. May we embrace the willingness to succeed by failing, to confirm by questioning, and to lead by serving. May we embrace the tensions of justice and mercy, freedom and bondage, guilt and mercy. May we be first because we were willing to be last, strong because we were willing to be weak, and beautiful not in spite of our brokenness, but because of our brokenness. As we heard from St. Francis of Assisi, O Divine Master, grant that we may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it's in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. Again, a special thank you to Dr. Teresa Chen for being with us today. A special thank you, Ethan Smith, for his wonderful words. Dr. Pepe Calvar and Dr. Anna Laver from the Setner School of Music, who help to organize these programs every Sunday. And again, thank you to our students for your wonderful voices. As we conclude, please receive this blessing, which comes to us from Jan Richardson from the book Circles of Grace, inspired by the 126th Psalm. When your weeping has watered the earth, when the storm has been long, and the night and the season of your sorrowing, when you have seemed an exile from your life, lost in the far country, a long way from where your comfort lies. When the sound of splintering and fracture haunts you, when despair attends you, when lack, when trouble, when fear, when pain, when empty, when lonely, when too much of what depletes you and not enough of what restores and rests you, then let there be rejoicing. Then let there be dreaming. Then let there be laughter in your mouth and on your tongue shouts of joy. Let the seeds soaked by tears turn to grain, to bread, to feasting. Let there be coming home.
The Lord lift his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord lift his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, and give you peace. The L